I'm kind of eyeballing my Volkswagen here. I think I'm going to pull that gas tank out. It doesn't leak or anything, but I should probably pull it out and kind of repaint it as long as I'm under here. And I've got one CV joint boot cracked. Not a big deal. I got a couple spares of them. Put one on. And I think I'll replace the clutch cable. And throttle cable. And probably these are heater control cables. Well, throw out bearing probably too. I do have to replace that whole corner is bad on the body, and this is the normal position for the battery to be in. 6-volt battery sits back here. Now at some time the previous owner had moved the battery to inside the cab, but I want to put it back. So I've got those parts coming. There'll be a little work here too. Now this is one of them cases where this tin is all bent up. What had happened, I'm sure, is somebody, the motor is kind of on like a platform and slides in. And at one time when I bought it, it had a bad valve in it. And I think somebody, in an attempt to get at those parts, took and pried this metal up. So I'm going to try to beat that back down so it lines up with the body pan, or with the engine pan. Because they run this gasket all the way around the motor. The idea, it's supposed to suck fresh air from the side panels, not from under the ground, from under the vehicle. So I do have this replacement gasket, but I'm going to have to get this one. But there's going to be a little body work have to be done. This other corner is solid though. Not something I'm really into, doing the body work, but I'm sure I'm capable of doing it. But it's one of them things. I know one time I had a discussion with somebody about that. She's got a little dent in the one corner here, but I don't think I need to replace that. This is the one. But now you can imagine, with the battery acid right there. So I do have a new corner for that. But I know one time I was talking to, he owned a motorcycle shop that I worked at, and he noticed there was a lot of people that did body work, that were buying bikes, and they were always a kind of a squirrely bunch. And the big debate was, were they squirrely before they got into body work? Was this something that, people that were kind of a little questionable gravitated toward body work? Or were they perfectly normal until they got into body work and sniffing all the chemicals and stuff made them squirrely? Kind of a chicken or the egg deal. But, like I say, I'm not really into body work, but I can do it. I'm going to do a little patch in there. Hammer that straight. But basically, I got to replace the whole floor inside. So I'm going to be rutting that all apart, but the main frame structure is solid. So I have a lot of those parts coming. Oh, I wondered where the number plate was. But this, I'm sure the motor that's in here is the original one that came in the motor, in the vehicle. Because I'm really, I know the first owner of the thing, and he had sold it to some Mexicans at one time, and they run it into the ground, and it ended up at a car lot, and I got it from them. But then I was later approached by the original owner, and he was telling me the whole backstory on it. In fact, I've got the original papers, you know, like the sales brochure that he looked at when he bought it back in 1961. So I got a lot of the stuff that goes with it. But yeah, I think to be on the safe side, I think I'll pull that gas tank out, because I want to check. Like I say, back in these days, they actually didn't have a gas gauge. They have a reserve tank. And there's a knob under the seat that you pull to get that extra gallon of gas. Kind of like what a motorcycle has. Now, so there's a petcock in here someplace that I'm going to have to check on. And the cable that runs up to it. So that's another part of the project. So I got the feeling I'm going to, you know, get the motor running, put the motor in, with the expectation I'm going to end up pulling the motor a couple more times so that I can get at and do some of the other stuff under here. But like I said, I have this down. I mean, it's 15 minutes to pull the motor out of it. That's where, you know, these people that tore this whole piece of metal here up, and they didn't really understand that it isn't that hard to pull the motor out. They got in a hurry, and to try to get at something, they just tore it apart. So that'll take a little hammer work. And I'll have to get that gasket coming. Yeah, they really boogered that up. But I think I can get it to work. Yeah, the gas tank's going to be interesting. You know, them bolts haven't been out since it was new, so they're going to be a little sticky. In fact, I should spray them with WD-40 right now and get them thinking. But I got a lot of parts coming. And I've got a lot of metal work on hand already for it. Just something I really not that enthused to leap into. You know, I'm not trying to make this thing a show vehicle. I'm just trying to get it back into functional condition. But that's where I really have to replace the floor inside, because there's, you know, like there's the two main frame rails. Like I say, they're solid, but the cross pieces are fairly rusty, and it's thin metal used on these things. So I'm going to replace all of them, which will involve taking out that heater duct work too, which could be interesting. I have to get this up in the air a bit. But I got new tires on. There's a start. At least I can move it around now. But like I say, I'm going to get the motor in it, and then I'll be able to drive it around. But that motor's going to be in and out a few times before I'm done with this project. But it's a start.